Hi, this is Koiro with a slightly different video for you. Today I'm going to present to you a computer from the Norwegian PC history. In Norway we had several pretty large manufacturers of computers where they mostly put together computers based on components bought from Asia. But in this same line of business, they also had several different lines of laptops and carriageable computers. And in those cases, it was mostly rebranding OEM products. The computer we are looking at today is badged with the Cinet brand. And Cinet was a Norwegian company that was pioneering in the computer business as a representative for the Banyan Wines network technology in Norway. And the first couple of years they sold Mitak brand computers. And I actually own several old Mitak computers that was sold by Cinet back in the day. But later on they started to produce their own computers, and this became a large part of their business, and they was supplying at the most over 40,000 computers a year. And this business was later sold out to other companies, and the companies was merging and splitting. And this company ended up bankrupt in 2003. And it was later on bought by the Norwegian company REC that continued to manufacture the Cinet PCs for several more years. But the computer we are looking for today is far, far older than that. Please welcome to the Cinet 286 BAT computer.
Ja, kanskje jeg kan hjelpe dem med
Hold den.
Ja.
Oi, den var lang.
Ja.
Kan du kutte den der? Var det snabben som stikker opp der, Anne?
Bistangen?
Den kan du bare fjerne, den har ikke noe bruk for.
Ja.
Veldig bra at det er det. Bare du kan ha spissen litt foran, så blir det lettere for meg å trekke garasjen. Hvor mange hester har du her?
150.
Det er lite det. Vi sier 300, og så leverer du på torsdag.
Umulig når det gjelder bil, fullt mulig når det gjelder PC. Cinet lanserer sin egen PC, satt sammen i Norge nøyaktig slik du vil ha den.
Today I have something special on my desk. In my first video where I had the lineup of the more exotic computer for December, I promised you a follow-up on this. This is not meant to be the follow-up on that video, as this video is only going to feature one computer. So this is a format I'm testing now, where I present one computer and go more in depth on this model. And this model is also something that I will present from a Norwegian perspective. The computer you see or the heap of parts really you see in front of me is an example. I told you that I sometimes get computer that's dismantled, or they try to dismantle them for trying to repair them themselves, copy of data or whatever. And this computer is actually in a kind of a sad form. You can see here you have some breakings in the plastic. And also this machine has had a NiCad battery. It has not leaked and etched into the electronics, but you can actually see the rests of electrolytic from the battery is floating down here and also over here. And this is covering some of the plastic for this machine, which makes it really difficult to try to glue anything or to make this cabinet with other types of plastics like epoxy or other stuff. This is one of the computers that I actually got to copy data, and they had tried this themselves. But when they opened this, they discovered that this was an IDE disk, and they only had serial ATA in their machine. This is a Connor CP3044. It's a classical 40 megabyte drive from back in the day. And this disk was actually working, I think it is 4 or 5 years ago when I got this computer. And this machine, to present what it really is, it's an OEM machine that's sold under a lot of different names. I can't find much info about this machine on the internet. It's not many who have done any presentations of this before, but this is actually in Norway manufactured under the name Cinet, and this is an OEM computer. They sold a lot of computer later with the Cinet brand, but up to about 1991, 1992, I was under the impression that they only sold the brand Mitak. They was actually an official distributor for the brand Mitak in Norway. I have some other Mitak computers that I can show later, but this is not a computer that made by Mitak. This is actually a computer that's made by the promising name AI Technologies, and this computer is sold under many names, as I said, but the original name for this computer is IA Electronics Corporation. They was the producer, and the model on this machine is the AI-PC-16/AT, and the machine itself is a 286 that's running on 12 megahertz. It has an AMD processor, and it's based on a common chipset that's called Headland. That's also quite common on 286 machines. This is the screen LCD controller, and this has this proprietary bus connecting this to the main board, and it also has two SIM sockets over here, and this is the built-in power supply. And here was the place for the floppy drive, and here was the hard drive mounted. I actually got this machine, as I said, in pieces, and some of the breakage in the cabinet was maybe due to poor handling when this was dismantled. And I actually never had this computer fully assembled, but I think I have all the parts. So I only have to sort out this plastic issue on the side here before I can fully mount this computer. There are also other differences. You have this wire that's broken. I don't know what this is, but it's something to do with the LCD. Maybe it's the backlight or something. And I think this machine has an LCD. The machine was also sold with a plasma screen, but as this machine was battery powered, I don't think this is plasma, it's LCD. And probably it's not the highest resolution, but as the machine itself has 9-pin output from this adapter, so it's EGA or CGA or Hercules. And the battery was in front here, and this NiCad pack, I still have the battery pack, but it's sealed in the plastic bag because it has been leaking. As you can see, I have now removed the video card. This is a module, so this computer has probably been possible to configure with other stuff. This machine is actually made in 1990. The date code of the machine is that it's made in September in 1990. And that's the date code on the serial of the machine. And the BIOS in the machine here is actually labeled 1985 copyright Interlink. So this machine has probably been on the market maybe from 1988, 1989 or something. At least I think this is quite the late area 286. I'm not sure how much memory this machine is configured with. My hope is that we will be able to power up this machine and see if we can have it post and see if we can get some more information about this machine. It's probably possible to glue together this case, and I will try to clean out some of the area that's wet with this electrolyte with isopropanol to see if I can dry it out. I don't know what kind of plastic this is, but there is a lot of loose pieces like this, so I have to figure at least where some of them goes and try to glue this together. It's also possible to try to weld the plastic with using heat, but I'm not sure how good this plastic is, and I think also the electrolytes from the batteries has etched into this plastic, because in some places you can actually feel that the plastic is covered with this. So maybe some of the issues with the plastic is that the electrolytes from the alkaline batteries has leaked out. So I'm not sure. I'm no chemist, so I don't know how this will affect it, but I will try to clean up these parts with isopropanol, and I will try to glue most of the case together, and I will try to mount it back on and try to power it on. As you Norwegian among us probably will see, this is an original yellow screwdriver from Norway, and this was made through the 80s and maybe late 70s and throughout the start of the 90s. Then this brand disappeared. I have some of these screwdrivers and they're my absolute favorite. The problem is that almost all the tips I have on this is not Pussy Drive, it's Philips. But for this old computer it's really nice, because almost all of the old computers have Philips star driver screw, not the Pussy Drive ones. You can see here some of the gunk, and it's started to corrode into the metal paint on the chassis, and it's really kind of like it's looking like epoxy that's not drying, but it seems to me like it's coming off, so it's probably possible to dry this out so much that I can put some glue on this case. Yes, it seems like it's possible to clean this out. When I got this computer, I was not sure what it was that was inside this, but as I later discovered that this was mostly in the battery area, I started to think that this was maybe the NiCad cells that had been leaking. And down on this edge here there is a lot of this leakage, and this I have to take away before I can start to mount this machine. When there are leakings on PCBs and stuff, it's of course very important to utilize the acids, but in this case, where it's mostly superficious on the plastic, you can see also here that the case is actually broken here, and this is a place where there has been some of this leakage. So I will try to clean this rather more and see if we actually can get this so clean that it's possible to glue. I think I will worry about the cosmetics of this later on. This is not about restoring this computer to its former glory, and I don't think that it's even possible, because there are so much damage to the plastic. But of course, some YouTubers they fancy to make everything look at it was when it was brand new and have this out of the box experience. I don't have this nostalgic feeling for these old computers. Even though I was in the business when these computers was sold, I was not that much into the different Norwegian brands and stuff. So even though this has some collectible value, not just for me, because this this is a machine that's not very well documented on the net. So I think it's wise to go into that, but I don't think the world needs to see this machine as brand new. I think that's a responsibility for maybe the company that made this computer, that they should make this available for museums and stuff. And if I was to have a really perfect specimen of this machine, I don't think that it ever is wise to start with one that come to you as parts in an old shoebox. Yes, and it's also that if you really brush this down, we will have problems with the brand new appearance anyway, because I can see that the paint itself, this is coated with some blackish paint on the outside and some silver paint on the inside, and it's peeling off. And as you can see, there is more faults in the plastic here. So the best that we can hope for is that this machine is possible to mount and get it to fit together as much that it's usable. Maybe this machine even has taken some damage from falling or something. I really don't know. I'm not sure what the history of this machine was, but I do remember that the data that was on this machine was quite valuable. I think it was an old guy that had this machine, and it was his kids that wanted to preserve some data of this machine. So I'm not really sure. What I'm doing now will come back to haunt me tomorrow, because I'm cleaning this with isopropanol alcohol, and I'm doing that without gloves on, and that's not a very wise thing to do, because this shit, it's totally drying out your skin. Some glue on this and see how it behaves. This capacitors in the power supply is actually looking good. They have these vents in the top, so if this was bulging or had some other faults, they probably would have broken up on the top. And this card is actually a multi-card, it's the power supply, but you also can see the knobs for the contrast stuff on. This was actually quite loose. This is actually some cheap cyanoacrylate glue that I got off the internet. So I'm not sure how good it is, but I have successfully glued other stuff with it before. And as I said, this is not about making this machine look brand new. It's about fixing it so that it will be possible to mount it together, and hopefully when we get it back together, it will be kind of preserving itself with all the stiffness that's in the other parts that we are going to fit together with the screws and everything. As I said, my big worry is that the plastic seems to be infected with this stuff, and even though isopropanol dries this out, I'm not sure if it's enough, and maybe the isopropanol also dissolves something in the plastic that makes it harder to glue. I don't know, but it does not look very promising. But I will put this aside and start with the top. Yeah, this top part will be really difficult to film, but I will try my best. And this part is also the most important to get some glue on, because this is a structural part of the machine. I don't know if this will work better with the accelerator. You have this accelerator for this super glue that will make this dry immediately. So we might want to try that for some of this part. You also see here that the screw fittings for the keyboard is part of what's broken here. Yes, it seems like this will take longer time to dry than I thought of, and it also seems that this is not very successful. So the plan B is maybe to let this dry, and I had some glue on the outside to make it stronger, and I will try to mend this side also together and let this dry overnight. I will try to fit this together as best as I can. The gluing of the case was not what I would call a huge success, and it also seems that some of the screws are missing. This will actually not be a problem, because I think it's only standard screws that's used for this. The floppy drives use standard 3mm screw, and I would think that the hard drive also uses the standard screws, and they're screwed in from the bottom, it seems. As I said, this drive was working when I copied out the data for the previous user. So I will try to have this in now and see if it spins up. The problem with these drives, it's when they're not in use for a while, the bearings dry up, and you often won't get them to spin up because the wheel bearings is stuck in some old oil or grease or something. This is the battery connector, and the battery will not be going in here again if there is not some issue with starting up that we can relate back to the battery. As you can see, the gluing of the case, not so good, but we will try to make good of what we can. As I said, this machine will never be in mint condition, and we will make do with what we have, and as long as this machine will boot and maybe continue its life as a useful machine, and will function properly, I don't care so much if it's not up to the brand new out of the box experience. Actually, a computer in this time by this company, Cinet, would probably never be delivered out of the box, because Cinet was a service company that probably would come out to you, and they won't sell you just a PC. They sold all the services that was connected to the PC. So even though we're not using the original screws, I think the screws that I've chosen for this job will be a good fit. Yes, the hard drive is fastened, the floppy drive is fastened. I will now try to see where the connectors for the keyboard and the LCD will fit. I also have this red and black connector that I've fixed, at least temporary. That probably goes into here on the power supply. So let's see if we can get this mixed together. Yes, this was the plug for the connector for the controller for the LCD, and this is more problematic because these leads are real short. This is also something that goes up to the LCD and it goes to the power. So maybe this LCD is backlight after all. And this is the keyboard connector, and this is the most difficult one because I have to really stretch it to get this back together. What I can tell you about this machine is that it has actually a Mitsumi keyboard, and that was quite common back in the day. A lot of the computers on the market, among others the Amiga, had Mitsumi keyboards, and it was also quite common in the PC area around 1997. I remember we sold a lot of Mitsumi keyboards. They was also quite big in CD-ROM drives and stuff. It's really fiddly to get this keyboard connector. Is good enough? I really don't know. We just have to try, don't we? There seems that there will be some more fiddling about with this. This is inside here you have a big ferrite core that's around the leads that goes up to the LCD, and this has to fit inside somehow. I will try putting this on the side and see how this all fits together. You also have this fan back here, so I think there will be enough space. And so it goes when you have not yourself dismantled the stuff you are going to mount. This is the battery cable. You have these drives. On that side everything looks okay. On this side I think still this ferrite might give us some trouble. Should go on the other side. Yeah, and now it's the battery connector and the front of the machine that's causing problems. But this actually had a place here. Yes, 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 yes. And yes. So for the first time in I don't know how many years, this is now probably fitting together, maybe in a way that it was supposed to be. I think these screws are actually for the battery compartment, and I don't think to think about them. I'm keeping this together. Is not fitting here. This should be quite a longer screw, but that's the problem when you get thing in a bucket. You really have no way in knowing what you are missing. I will try some other screw just to see if this is what it takes to get this together. The clue when you are choosing screws that not meant to be is not to choose the ones that's too long, because then you risk damaging the electronics that's behind, so that you screw into something and make a short circuit or something. Yeah, I think I will try this one. Yes, I think that's the same that I choose on the other side. But let's see. The Cinet 286 BAT, as they called it. It was very difficult to get a good view of the keyboard, but as you can see, this has the special Norwegian characters. And the machine, you can see the damage here over by the keyboard. I still have these plastic pieces left. I don't think I'm going to glue them in, but I'm going to put them in a plastic bag in the battery compartment. And then I will try to power up this machine and see if it works. This power supply, as you can see, is 12 volt, but you have the unusual configuration here where it's minus center and positive on the cap. So I actually don't have an original power supply for this, so I have to try to connect this to my power supply in the lab, try to find a connector that fits, and just reverse the leads on my power supply. At the same time, we are on the back of the machine. You see here it's a shielded expansion port. I think that this is really the 80 bus that's mirrored to the outside. This is a proprietary keyboard controller. It's not standard PS2. And this is the RGB output. This is 9 pins, so as I said before, this is Hercules, EGA or CGA. Probably this is CGA. We have to see when we get the machine running. And serial port 1 and 2. And we have the parallel port here. We have the on-off switch here. For testing this computer, I just take my normal lead and I just reverse it and put the minus to the plus and the plus to the minus on the power supply. So that means that this connector here get the minus in the center and the positive on the shielding on the outside. The machine is trying to boot, but the screen does not look okay, and I can hear the hard drive spinning up. I don't see any light now in the hard drive. Hey, what do you know? The machine actually booted into, and you can see there is some damage on the LCD just here, but otherwise the machine posted, and it states, as it said on the BIOS chips, Interlink Business Network as the BIOS name, and it says that the system options are not set. Run setup, F1 to continue. I'm not sure what the shortcut is to run setup on this machine. Now it tells me when I try to run the setup. I think the means to get into the setup is pressing Alt Control Escape, that was all quite common back in the day. He says that your battery is either dead or disconnected. Correct the problem and then rerun setup. I have to look into this machine again to see if there is some other battery than the NiCad battery that acts as the system up for the BIOS. If there is, I'm going to change it. If not, I'm going to try to apply power to the leads that leads into the NiCad compartment and see if this corrects the problems, so that we can see if we can boot this computer. But I think that this will be the end of this video, and I will have to do some more research and take the machines apart again before we can test to see if we can correct this error and get this machine booting.